16. I'd like to welcome everybody to the special meeting of the Lafayette Township Board of Trustees and Fire District, Thursday, August 20th. Roll call.
Kittle here.
Allow him.
And Pearl here. If everyone would join me for the pledge. Close to that. All right. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Alright, so we just have the one item on the agenda for today, the Ballas Road culvert resolution that we had questions over at the last meeting. I think everybody's had an opportunity to speak with the county, kind of understand the process a little bit better. Just for kind of everybody that's following along, I think one of the things that probably fell through the cracks or maybe got missed in the process of how it should have originally handled is when we were discussing the bid opening at the county engineer's office. What normally happens from that point is the engineer's office takes the lowest and best, which by their definition simply means the lowest dollar amount bid, and then best being anybody that hasn't had an issue where they've been flagged in their system or don't meet a certification or licensing or insurance type, like something that would disqualify, right? But those bids should still all then come to us as a board to review and then award a bid, at which point they start the process of putting all the contracts together, the county prosecutor's office, because obviously it's a process. So we have 60 days from the bids being opened to executing the contracts. So we kind of, somewhere along the lines, whether it was communication didn't get to the township, whether, you know, again, this is the first time we've all kind of been through this. So I guess my understanding is that we should have done an award of Cole or one of the other bidders at that time.
Sure.
But I think.
So who made that decision? Like, how did we proceed with Cole without it coming to the township board of trustees for approval?
Well, so what happens is the default goes to the lowest best, and absent anything else, they just start the process, because again, the 60 day time frame. So I understand what you're asking, and I agree. I don't know, my assumption would be, and maybe Carrie can shed some light on it, but I would have thought that the bids, when they were opened on the 29th, somewhere would have either come to the service department or hopefully to, you know, the board directly. But I don't necessarily know that the county engineers always knows like who the service liaison is. So it may have simply come to the service department, or maybe it didn't. But I don't know. Like, did they advise us?
I couldn't tell you. I
My
didn't
apologies.
where it came, at what stage. I just know that Matt called me about it, and then Jen called me about it later on. So whether the conversations were, you know how it can happen, crossovers, it just came to us later. There was a gap between the initial to when the first set of emails started to come in with it.
It just sounds like there was an assumption that just because they're the lowest and they weren't flagged as an invalid contractor or something, that they just went with the default. Like, I feel like that should come to us to just make sure that we're good with it and prove it, so we don't get into a situation like this where, the last minute we're signing something and.
I think one thing that came out, because I was talking to the county about this, it's very, how it was handled was just typical throughout the entire county. If we want to change the process a little bit and we want that information, we probably have to address that with the county to ask them, can you please make sure it comes to the board then first, the entire board? Because from my understanding is it's typical what they did. This is usual.
Well, and it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, there's a couple of, we've been doing a lot this year of kind of looking at the processes and the procedures and the way that we handle things, right? So there may very well be a standing order that simply says, you know, we always, like, we could have a policy, right, that says we always take the lowest best, right?
Sure.
And then there is no decision. So I'm feeling like my conversations with the county was that that's kind of the way that a lot of places operate. To your point, though, I think that we probably want to set a better process internally from the standpoint of anytime a project like this is done, we're gonna know when the bids are gonna be read, right? So they
I
were,
didn't know this time, I don't,
well, we should have, right? And
sorry, Carrie, did you go to when they opened the bids? I thought,
No, the county do that without the township, that's
so
their,
Matt wasn't there, you weren't there?
no one usually goes, it's very
Okay.
typical, only the county do that level.
Okay, alright, go ahead.
which we probably wanna change. If I'm hearing you correctly, and I'm kind of of that opinion too, like
I would like to be notified, so if we're available to go, a service member or a board, a trustee could at least attend.
So can I
If one,
Can I ask Ben then the question of Ben, have we ever seen it where the service department go to see the bids being opened?
Not that I'm aware of.
It's always been a county.
my question would be, I don't know, and maybe this is a point where we can get clarification, I don't know that we necessarily even need to be there when it's done, not to make a decision, but when they're done, right, we've met several times since then. So the bids get opened, in this case, let's say it was June 29th, I believe, right? So the next board meeting, we should have discussed those bids.
absolutely.
And I think that's where, we don't necessarily need to be there.
Opening.
Right, but this would have given us then the time to say, hey, do we have these questions
Right.
over, the vendors that we've worked with, are we more comfortable with this or that, or are there more questions that need to be asked? I did have an opportunity to speak with both Dan Becker at the county and, Gary Cole, who owns Cole Excavating.
Yeah.
They do have an established reputation with the county, they have,
Yeah.
so, again, while we may not have had a lot of work with them, the county does, right, so they're not a brand new bidder. But I do agree with you 100% that in future projects, we should have this process handled so that, the bids come in, the board, kind of formally accepts either the recommendation of the county engineer for the lowest best, or one of the other vendors if there's a reason to. Because where we wind up in this last minute part that I think you were bringing up earlier is, from that June 29th date, you have 60 days to get through the whole process. So we should have reviewed those 3 bids much earlier. Say we settled on Cole, then that signifies that the county can start working on the contracts, the prosecutor's office can review those, so they prepare everything. And then it is standard, this is the part that I wasn't aware of either, so it is standard for once the county prosecutor's office reviews these and has them done, the contractor that's gonna be used signs them before the board reviews them and accepts them. So the contractor had signed these, but nobody from the township
Okay.
had executed any of these, so.
Yeah, I'm not saying that the outcome would have been different, like, there's a good
Right.
chance we would have appointed or selected Cole Excavating, but
The process.
the process seemed a little clunky, and I wasn't sure if Matt approved to move forward with it, or if Matt and Carrie, or somebody.
I think the presumption came in because obviously there was a mistake made on the county, before, so with the previous company having, I think they just presumed we were going ahead with the stage, so perhaps along the way there is that miscommunication a little bit on their end to us.
Okay.
But from what I understand, this is exactly how they do it every time.
Okay. So nobody from the township told them to go with Cole Excavating?
No, usually they tell us who they're picking. The lowest bid of the best, it's how they do it.
When I talked to Dan Becker, it wasn't their decision, it's our decision.
It is our decision, but I think maybe where the disconnect is that I think, from my conversations, most of the political subdivisions do default to lowest best.
Correct.
And so absent any type of mechanism between then, the county engineer's office just starts the process with the county prosecutor's office to get all of the contracts in place. Because again, there is a statutory requirement that's done within 60 days. So I guess we can work on it we're not gonna have another one of these next week or anything like that. But we will have something like this in the future, so I think if I'm hearing kind of what you're saying, is we should work on an internal process
Yeah.
for these, so that any time that the county opens bids on our behalf, the next board meeting, it's presented to the trustees, and again, it may very well, like you said, right, it may very well turn into almost a, you know, just a formal
Yeah.
rubber stamp,
Approval,
you know,
yeah.
approval, but it creates a documented process of the township actually formally accepting it versus this idea of the county just kind of
Yeah.
because they don't dictate to us. It is 100% our
And I was told that we're able to choose somebody that's not the lowest bid. Correct. But we have to have a pretty good reason.
Yeah.
And this next bidder is $10,000 off, so we gotta have a real good reason why we wanna spend $10,000 to warrant, right, you know.
Yeah.
So if it's within a small dollar amount,
right.
then it's a little more lenient, I guess, and if you, selected somebody else other than the lowest bidder, but, having a $10,000 gap, like I said, we probably the outcome wouldn't have changed, we just need to improve the process, and that's
Yep.
not for this meeting, but, I just wanted to discuss that and try to understand better how Cole was selected, and if anybody from the township had any input on selecting, Cole, and it sounds like, nobody did, so.
Right.
No, and I know when I spoke with the county, one thing that, why we have a like a huge gap, is when he submitted his bond to them, the bond was a very low amount. So the county put everything on pause while they were trying to deal with the bond and and that went to the prosecution. So that lapse and delay meant that probably it slipped through the net with us seeing what was going on, because we didn't have any communication at that point with the county about it. The project had just gone dark for a while. So I think, like you say, when we do this process is keeping us in the loop that there are delays like that as well, so that we know that it doesn't get dropped in future.
So yeah, I mean, the only thing I would add to that is, I mean, that's a good point of clarification for why we're here today, right? It's not because, you know, it was because because of the lack of information early in the process, you know, it was presented to the board as, you know,
Yeah.
right, so,
Like, it was a done deal when it was presented to us, and
right.
we weren't sure how that became about.
Alright, so if everybody's comfortable with the process now, I think for today, so that we can move move it forward, we've got, resolution 2026-45, resolution accepting and awarding the replacement of the culvert number 31 on Ballish Road in Lafayette Township for the Medina County Engineer, to Cole Excavating. I would make the motion for $125,938, as set forth in Exhibit A, which we will include in the resolution. And then, you know, do we have any comments on it, or do I have a second?
Any other comments?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay. Roll call?
Well, yes.
Kittle, yes.
Paroli, yes. And then we will work on kind of outlining the process. And again, I think it just goes back to the whole, we need to stay on top of it, right? Because even though, like, we know when they're gonna put it out for bid, so the service department should be kind of staying in contact with the engineer's office so that, you know, whenever any projects in the township have bids come back, it's just brought to the board at the next meeting. You know, because then if we do need to do additional due diligence, we can do it then, or we can say, hey, no, we're good with it, and the prosecutor's office and the engineer's office can start working on that. So, we will get this done and signed. The county will be holding a pre-construction meeting tomorrow. Ben and Tyler will both be there with the county.
Where's
Are
that?
you, it's at site on Culver.
At
Or
the site.
I'm not available tomorrow.
are you able to be there at 9?
At 9 to.
Oh, 9?
It's 9 a.m.
I'll have a look. If I can, then I'll be there, I'll tell you now.
I mean, it's not imperative, but it would be nice if one of us could be
Yeah,
there.
I usually try, I have decided to try doing this.
And then, we will need to post some signs, because they will need to close the road for a period of time, which is also covered in the resolution, so,
Take care of that.
Ben can take care of getting signs posted after the pre-construction meeting when they decide kind of when that's gonna be, yeah, exactly, so, but they're hoping to start as early as Monday, if
Oh, wow.
possible, so, you know, just depends on how everything goes, so,
Not much of a notice there.
but if there's any questions, I don't have anything else, there's nothing else on the agenda.
I'll make a motion to adjourn,
Okay,
3:31.
I will second, all in favor?
Uh,
Aye.